Ready?
Yes.
Okay. In my last talk, I compared my writing in Rossetti, which I consider to be my Moby Dick, 877 pages, to the real Moby Dick. And I think that you need to hear a short passage again from Chapter 3 of The Spotter Inn. I think you've got to hear these things more than once to really appreciate them. Chapter 3, The Spouter Inn. Entering that gable-ended Spouter Inn, you found yourself in a wide, low, straggling entry with old-fashioned wainscots reminding one of the bulwarks of some condemned old ship. On one side hung a very large oil painting so thoroughly besmoked and in every way defaced that only by diligent study is one able to discern its subject. A boggy, soggy, squitchy picture, truly, enough to drive a nervous man to distraction. An unaccountable attraction freezes you to it, bewitching you with its masses of shades and shadows. Only by intense contemplation do you discern a portentous black mass in the center of the picture, hovering above three blue dim perpendicular lines floating in a nameless yeast. But stop, does it not bear a faint resemblance to a gigantic fish, even the great Leviathan itself? The picture represents a Cape Horner in a great hurricane, the half-foundered ship weltering there with its three dismantled masts alone visible, and an exasperated whale purposing to spring clean over the craft is in the enormous act of impaling himself upon the three mastheads. This has to be one of the greatest passages in English literature, certainly in American literature, and I wrote it. Okay, you can hear the real thing. I told you that I thought I could do a better job. Okay, this is going to take about 6 times as long. Entering that gable-ended Spotter Inn, you found yourself in a wide, low, straggling entry with old-fashioned wainscots, reminding one of the bulwarks of some condemned old craft. On one side hung a very large oil painting, so thoroughly besmoked and every way defaced that in the unequal crosslights by which you viewed it, it was only by diligent study and a series of systematic visits to it, and careful inquiry of the neighbors that you could anyway arrive at an understanding of its purpose. Such unaccountable masses of shades and shadows that at first you almost thought some ambitious young artist in the time of the New England hags had endeavored to delineate chaos bewitched. But by dint of much and earnest contemplation and oft-repeated ponderings, and especially by throwing open the little window towards the back of the entry, you at last come to the conclusion that such an idea, however wild, might not be altogether unwarranted. But what most puzzled and confounded you was a long, limber, portentous black mass of something hovering in the center of the picture over three blue, dim, perpendicular lines floating in a nameless yeast. A boggy, soggy, squitchy picture, truly enough to drive a nervous man distracted. Yet was there a sort of indefinite, half-attained, unimaginable solemnity about it that fairly froze you to it, till you involuntarily took an oath with yourself to find out what that marvelous painting meant. Ever and anon, a bright but alas deceptive idea would dart through you. that would dart you through. It's the Black Sea in the midnight gale. It's the unnatural combat of the four primal elements. It's a blasted heath. It's a Hyperborean winter scene. It's the breaking up of the icebound stream of time. But last, all these fancies yielded to the one portentous something in the picture's midst. That once found out, and all the rest were plain. But stop, does it not bear a faint resemblance to a gigantic fish? Even the great Leviathan himself? In fact, the artist's design seemed this, a final theory of my own, partly based upon the aggregated opinions of many aged persons with whom I convened upon the subject. The picture represents a Cape Horner and a great hurricane, the half-foundered ship weltering there with its 3 dismantled masts alone visible, and an exasperated whale purposing to spring clean over the craft is in the enormous act of impaling himself upon the 3 mastheads. I'm not sure that I succeeded in capturing the magic of the writing, of the original writing. I'll leave that for you to decide. But certainly, I don't think that I've written 15% of the words that Melville wrote. So it's a very drastic addition. My feeling is that some of this material in the original Melville is just really superfluous. It goes too far, and it just it's too trying for the reader, and it's really superfluous. The stuff about it's like beating a dead horse. I mean, to me, it's just too much. And yet, I appreciate its charm, its antique charm. So you heard my version, and if you believed me when I said that this was chapter 3 of the Slaughter Inn, if you believed it, well, then I did a good job, I must say. I have been reading the first chapters of famous books to compare them to my opening chapters in my Moby Dick presented. Who cares? Who cares how good your first chapter is? I mean, the book is a question: how good is a book? That's what's important. Not how good is your first chapter. I see in Melville's prose some of the greatest writing in prose ever written. What I call home runs. Look at the beginning. Listen to the beginning of Moby Dick, chapter 1, Loomings. Call me Ishmael. Some years ago, never mind how long precisely, having little or no money in my purse, and nothing particular to interest me on shore, I thought I would sail about a little and see the watery part of the world. It is a way I have of driving off the spleen and regulating the circulation. Whenever I find myself growing grim about the mouth, whenever it is a damp, drizzly November in my soul, whenever I find myself involuntarily pausing before coffin warehouses and bringing up the rear of every funeral I meet, and especially whenever my hypos get such an upper hand of me that it requires a strong moral principle to prevent me from deliberately stepping into the street and methodically knocking people's hats off, then I account it high time to get to sea as soon as I can. That is a real home run. It doesn't, by my lights, it doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any better than that. circumambulate the city of a dreamy Sabbath afternoon. Go from Collier's Hook to Countless Slip, and from thence to by Whitehall northward. What do you see? Posted like silent sentinels all around the town stand thousands upon thousands of mortal men fixed in ocean reveries, some leaning against the spiles, some seated upon the pierheads, some looking over the bulwarks of ships from China, some high aloft in the rigging, as if striving to get a still better seaward peep. But these are all landsmen of weekdays, pent up in lath and plaster, tied to counters, nailed to benches, clinched to desks. How then is this? Are the green fields gone? What do they hear? Then he doesn't know where to stop. I mean, he doesn't have a self-editor in his psyche. He makes his point, but then he beats a dead horse. Once more, say you are in the country, in some high land of lakes. Take almost any path you please, and 10 to 1 it carries you down in the dale and leaves you there by a pool in the stream. There is a magic in it. Let the most absent-minded of men be plunged in his deepest reveries. Stand that man on his legs and set his feet a-going, and he will infallibly lead you to water, if water there be in all that region. Should you ever be athirst in the great American desert, try this experiment. If your caravan happen to be supplied with a metaphysical professor, yes, as everyone knows, meditation and water are wedded forever. He's sort of a compulsive obsessive. I mean, he's going to write the ultimate book about the whaling. So he's got to write a chapter on a whale's tail. Hey, some people love it. They think it's charming. I told you about the critic that said the book was unreadable. And I had thought about, when I read it, editing it just like I did now, turning, but the question is, my glaucoma is getting me. I can't stand the bright lights. Yeah, but see, the question is, am I losing too much of the antique charm, in my edition? So I'd love to hear, what you have to say about it. I mean, did you really believe that it was the slaughter in? I mean, I read the most important opening passage. It's actually about over 4 pages long, and my version is less than a page, I think. So I mean, it's how did it play with you? How it impacted you? I want to compare my writing to that of another famous author, Lawrence Durrell. He wrote a series of 4 books called the Alexandria Quatrain, I think it was called. Each one had the name of a different woman. And I was mystified by these books when they came out. I wondered if there was something to them that I wasn't seeing. In other words, I wondered if I wasn't appreciating them. So I'm going to read some of this Justine by Lawrence Durrell, the Alexandria Quartet. The Alexandria Quartet. This writing makes me think of Ulysses by James Joyce. Justine, Part 1. The sea is high again today, with a thrilling flush of wind. In the midst of winter, you can feel the inventions of spring. a sky of hot nude pearl until midday, crickets in sheltered places, and now the wind unpacking the Great Plains, ransacking the Great Plains. So he's obviously in a sort of reverie here, and he's engaging in a stream of consciousness. How do you get from the sea is high again today to the wind, and now the wind unpacking the Great Plains? I have escaped to this island with a few books and the child, Melissa's child. I do not know why I use the word escape. The villagers say jokingly that only a sick man would choose such a remote place to rebuild. Well then, I have come here to heal myself, if you like to put it that way. At night when the wind roars and the child sleeps quietly in its wooden cot by the echoing chimney piece, I light a lamp and walk about thinking of my friends, of Justine and Nessun, of Melissa and Balthazar. I return link by link along the iron chains of memory to the city which we inhabited so briefly together, the city which used us as its flora, participated in us conflicts, precipitated in us conflicts which were hers, and which we mistook for our own beloved Alexandria. What does that mean? It used us as its flower, as its flora, as its... What does that mean? It used us as its some kind of landscaping. The city which used us as its flora precipitated in us conflicts which were hers, and which we mistook for our own beloved Alexandria. Okay. It precipitated conflicts, inner conflicts in people, which were her conflicts, the city's conflicts, but we mistook them for our own? Come on. I mean, that's nonsense. I mean, it's like, we're having rioting and pillaging, and we mistake this for our own inner turbulence somehow. But it's really the city that's in turmoil, not us. Precipitated in us conflicts which were hers, which we mistook for our own. See, it's too ambiguous. It's too ambiguous. I mean, without more specification. I mean, I suppose it could be possible, but I can't imagine how it could be possible. So he's not communicating any idea in my head. I mean, I can't imagine what he's talking about. I have had to come so far away from it in order to understand it at all, living in this bare promontory, snatched every night from darkness by Arcturus, far from the lime-laden dust of those summer afternoons. I see at last that none of us is properly to be judged for what happened in the past. It is the city which should be judged, though we, its children, must pay the price. I have no idea what this man is saying. It is a city... Oh God. Let's not go back there. Capitally, what is this city of ours? What is resumed in the word Alexandria. In a flash, my mind's eye shows me 1,000 dust-tormented streets. Flies and beggars own it today. And those who enjoy an intermediate existence between either. Okay, so people that have existences between flies and beggars. Well, I guess, that's a metaphorical way of saying a miserable existence. Again, I don't really know what he's talking about. He's really not communicating something specific to me. I respond by saying, what do you mean? What do you mean? And, all right, 5 races, 5 languages, 12 creeds, 5 fleets turning through their greasy reflections behind the harbor bar. But there are more than 5 sexes, and only Demotic Greek seems to distinguish among them. The sexual provender which lies to hand is staggering in its variety and profusion. You would never mistake it for a happy place. The symbolic lovers of the free Hellenic world are replaced here by something different, something subtly androgynous, inverted upon itself. The symbolic lovers of the free Hellenic world. This is worse than James Joyce, because James Joyce, if it's annotated, you can read the annotation and you're going to know exactly what Joyce is referring to, alluding to. But I'd like to see the annotation here. I'd like somebody to annotate this and tell me what Durrell means. The Orient cannot rejoice in the sweet anarchy of the body, for it has outstripped the body. Okay. Rejoicing in the sweet anarchy of the body, for it has outstripped the body. I remember Nessim once saying, I think he was quoting, that Alexandria was the great wine press of love. Those who emerged from it were the sick men, the solitaries, the prophets. All who had been deeply wounded in their sex. So, what's going on here? What's he doing? I think this is highly subjective writing, where you are not concerned about communicating ideas. You only have one concern, and that's expressing your own feelings. And the idea is that you do it so eloquently, so poetically, that the reader is enraptured with it. Now he's talking about Balthasar. Balthasar is going to be the subject of the last of the 4 books of the series. It's going to be called Balthasar. The sulking bodies of the young begin to hunt for a fellow nakedness, and in those little cafes where Balthasar went so often with the old poet of the city, the boys stir uneasily in their backgammon under the petrol lamps, disturbed by this dry desert wind, so unromantic, so unconfiding, stir and turn to watch every stranger. They struggle for breath, and in every summer kiss, they can detect the taste of quicklime. God. Okay, this book was chosen by modern libraries as one of the best novels of the 20th century. It was rated as number 70, I guess. Not very high on the list, but it was taken seriously. Okay? I had to come here in order completely to rebuild a city in my brain, melancholy provinces which the old man saw as full of the black ruins of his life. Clang of the trams shuddering in their metal veins as they pierce the iodine-colored Medine of Maritza. Okay, annotation please. Gold, phosphorus, magnesium, paper. Here we so often met. There was a little colored stall in summer with slices of watermelon and the vivid water ices she liked to eat. She would come a few minutes late, of course, fresh perhaps from some assignation in the darkened room from which I heard my mind, but so fresh, so young. The open petal of the mouth which fell upon mine like an unslaked summer. So he's heterosexual, or he's bisexual. The man she had left might still be going over and over the memory of her. She might be as if still dusted by the pollen of his kisses. Melissa, I think that's one of the books, one of the 4 books entitled. It mattered so little somehow, feeling the lithe weight of the creature as she leaned on one's arm, smiling with the selfless candor of those who had given over with secrets. It was good to stand there, awkward and a little shy, breathing quickly because we knew what we wanted of each other. The messages passing beyond conscience, directly through the flesh, lips, eyes, water ices, the colored stall. To stand lightly there, our little fingers linked, drinking in the deep camphor-scented afternoon, a part of city. Now, I think that's very good. I think that page is outstanding. Because I understand what he's saying. And it's very poetic and original. I have been looking through my papers tonight. Some have been converted to kitchen uses. Some the child has destroyed. This form of censorship pleases me, for it has the indifference of the natural world to the constructions of art. This form of censorship pleases me, for it has the indifference of the natural world to the constructions of art, an indifference I am beginning to share. The natural world is indifferent to the constructions of art. I would guess so. It doesn't have any consciousness, but he says an indifference I am beginning to share. After all, what is the good of a fine metaphor for Melissa when she lies buried deep as any mummy in the shallow, tepid sand of the black estuary? Oh, I know just what you mean. But those papers I guard with care are the 3 volumes in which Justine kept her diary, as well as the folio, which records Nessim's madness. Nessim noticed them when I was leaving and nodded as he said, Nessim's one of the 4 books too. Take these, yes, read them. There is much about us all in them. They should help you to support the idea of Justine without flinching, as I have had to do. This was the summer palace after Melissa's death, when he still believed Justine would return to him. I think often and never without a certain fear of Nessim's love for Justine. What could be more comprehensive, more surely founded in itself? It colored his unhappiness with a kind of ecstasy, the joyful wounds which you'd think to meet in saints and not in mere lovers. Yet one touch of humor would have saved him from such dreadful, comprehensive suffering. It is easy to criticize, I know. All right, that all settled in my head. In the great quietness of these winter evenings, there is one clock, the sea. Its dim momentum in the mind is the fugue upon which this writing is made. Beautiful. I mean, that actually has some meaning. Empty cadences of seawater licking its own wounds, sulking along the mouths of the delta, boiling upon those those deserted beaches, empty forever, empty under the galls, white scribble on the gray, launched by clouds. If there are ever sails here, they die before the land shadows them. Wreckage washed up on the pediments of islands, the last crust eroded by the weather, stuck in the blue maw of water, gone. I'm lost here. Apart from the wrinkled old peasant who comes from the village on her mule each day to clean the house, the child and I are quite alone and is happy and active amid unfamiliar surroundings. I have not named it yet. Of course it will be Justine. Who else? You know, this sort of intrigues me now because I wonder, he's starting with this, stream of consciousness. It's not meant to have any meaning. It's sort of like the poetry of John Asher. It's meant to express, he's expressing himself to us. That's what he's doing. All right. But I wonder if he's going to actually develop a narrative with Justine, that I can understand, that makes some sense, that, somehow relates to reality. Talking about his feeling, standing with her in the stall where they sold watermelons, and how he felt. That was very nice. I think that was good. He's a very celebrated author. I take him very seriously. I wonder how popular he is today. I was intrigued by him, and I just didn't have the patience. I mean, I was too young when I tried to read him. You have to have a great deal of patience, but I'll read on, and I'll tell you if he gets into something that's meaningful to me. If he starts telling a narrative that has real characters and events that are interesting. I always go back to my first principle of art. Art must be interesting. And he makes it interesting. He makes his work interesting with its poetry, the beauty of its lines, of its images. So it's interesting, but it has to have meaning. It can't be John Ashbery nonsense, where it's just have two different people doing something completely different. I'm sure it does. And John Ashbery poem. Yeah, so you see this fellow's doing, Durrell's doing, just the opposite of what I'm doing. I am communicating in a way that a 10-year-old could understand. At the same time, my subject matter is not, infantile. It's not. I think that an intelligent, sophisticated reader is going to see a lot more in it than the young person who reads it. I'm talking about my representation. And I'm doing something that's very different than either Durrell, Wilson, or Herman Melville, and that is that I am creating a world, an imaginary world, that I pull you into. I want you to feel that you are. I want you to feel the experience of this world. When you start reading, I want it to cast a spell, my writing to cast a spell over you, so that you're actually in this scene, with these characters. You're in this world. You feel like you're there. A movie does the same thing. A good movie, you suspend disbelief. Well, that's what I'm trying to make you do with my writing. This is like James Joyce's writing about writing. It's the subject matter here is the writing itself. You read it, you don't understand it, you don't look at past it because you wonder what how it means. And yet, it's to me, it's not as frivolous and intolerable as Joyce's writing. I mean, it's effeminate. Joyce is. I don't understand why nobody saw that. All of these critics writing it, but they were afraid to sound like a homophobe, even like 100 years ago. So none of them said what I think is so obvious about the Joyce writing that I read. It's just very effeminate. You have two men talking about milk and giggling and having fun with their discussion of milk or one another's clothes or one another's names. It's so frivolous. It's effeminate. Effeminate doesn't mean like a woman, really. It means something else. It means a caricature of a woman. An exaggeration of a woman. We don't call a woman, say she's effeminate. A woman can't be effeminate. It's a man. Only a man can be effeminate. And it's not because he really acts like a woman does, but like he makes us think of stereotypes and caricatures of women. That's what we mean when we say feminine. That's what I mean when I'm talking about Joyce's writing is sounding terribly effeminate to me. He doesn't sound. I love his short stories. I think they're some of the best ever written. This is an assignment for you. You must read Evelyn, the boarding house, and what's wrong with you? You'll have trouble finding it. It's a story about the little boy that goes to the bazaar. So he comes to town. Asiatic bazaar, Turkish bazaar, something like that. And, it's just a masterpiece. That writing, he's not in it. And see, he's not in it. It's pure evocation. His best writing. It's so charming and so powerful. God, Evelyn, geez, that's so great. All of the three, and the Dead is also very good. Not as good as the short ones, I don't think. It's very, very, very. See, you want to write, if you want to model, see, for your writing among the four I've discussed here, I strongly suggest that you use me as a model for writing prose, for writing a novel. You can't use Lawrence Durrell. I mean, you have to be Lawrence Durrell to write this stuff. Ditto for James Joyce. And you don't want to write a book that no one will read. And people, half of the people that read it, like Carl Jung and me, they'll reject it. They won't like it. You want to write a book that people are going to enjoy. Again, Thomas Mann. So the novel must delight, enlighten, and entertain. Okay. Joseph Conrad. All art makes its appeal to our humanity. That's why I say Andy Warhol's not art. It's anti-art, in my opinion. So you can't use Ulysses as your model. You can't use Lawrence Durrell as your model. You sure can't use Melville. Modern people are not interested in these endless analogies you find. He doesn't know where to stop. Instead of just making his point, the picture was obscure, yet fascinating somehow. Instead of making that point in as few words as possible, he rhapsodizes about it, and he expands it. It's like he's saying, what is everything I can say about this painting? See, I want to say everything I can possibly say about it. And it wears you out. It's not for the modern reader. The modern reader doesn't, it's not used to this, and he doesn't have the sensibility. I mean, I can't stand it. When he starts, he just goes on and on and on. Okay? And it's too much. Well, I want to know, did you prefer my version? Did you think that it was Melville? Okay, I'd love to. Or do you? I think his version has a wonderful charm to it, and I probably was not able to capture completely. But look at, I had 15% of the words to do so. Yeah, so I think that my Rossetti is an ideal model for a novelist. Noviciate. It's just like if you're painting, I started with things where I could really understand. I started copying, and then I started copying Jablinski faces, and then I made my own faces. I've given them all away. People know I showed you by night. That's a completely original face. There's nothing remotely like a Jablinski face. So you got to start somewhere. As a writer, I didn't have to look for models because I internalized. I don't want you to look at me as a model. I want you to internalize whatever you can learn from me, and also from Moby Dick. But don't start writing, in the 19th century style. Don't start doing that. It's not going to work. Maybe you can internalize Lawrence Durrell, and come out with something that's beautiful and powerful. It'd be great. I think I've gone over with you the novels I want you to read, but I'm afraid that people are not going to go back and listen to all my YouTube, so I'm always repeating these things for new people, because I'm afraid most of the people are new people. I like novels that are really sort of memoirs, like the Gertrude Stein's one of my favorites, autobiography of Alasby Totus, which is really her memoir of her own life. The son, Alasby Totus, his life and lost her life. I like Hemingway's Movable Feast. And as I told you, we must read the Gertrude Stein, and then at least read the passages. They're in chapters. Read the chapters in Movable Feast about Hemingway's relationship to Gertrude Stein, hanging out in her salon, the drink, and helping her making Americans get serialized. You must try that. It's really fascinating. Nobody has ever finished it. But I want you to try it, Making Americans. You don't need to try Gender Buttons. I should look at it just to see what. She was an explorer. She was an explorer, a psychic explorer. And Tender Buttons is that's an exercise. It's unsuccessful, but it's what I like about her is she's so open-minded and so exploratory. Searching her unconscious mind. Okay, I want you, an absolute must is Paris, from George Orwell's Paris and London. Don't bother with London. God, that's a downer. I'm going to read about hobos in London, 1900. No. But Paris is just really, it's just enchanting. He talks about working in this kitchen. He's a young starving writer, and he's working in a kitchen in this cavernous 1900 Parisian hotel as a plongeur, which means plunger in English, dishwasher, plongeur. And his description, of the ne'er-do-wells he meets and the life of this kitchen, especially during its busy hours, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the chaos in the kitchen, the activity is just some of the greatest writing I know. You gotta read Kanye, of course. When you do, take a look at my Orpheus in Tampa, which I think has somewhat the same energy as Candide. My son thinks that my masterpiece is Fergie, which I wrote in my 20s, based on the being a freshman in Hernando High School in Brooksville, Florida. I was a freshman in high school for a semester. God, that was I'll never forget that. I'm praying that my short story, which has been seized, Watermelon Thieves, which I think is going to be the short story I've ever written. I'm praying, I gave it to friends, but they can't find it. I'm praying I'll be able to find it. If I do, I'll read it to you. Watermelon Thieves. God, that's a great story. What other? Well, you got to read Donna Karenina, War and Peace, Brothers Karamazov. You got to read those novels. You got to read Old Curiosity Shop, Oliver Twist. You probably don't have the patience to read the biggie. Something House, Bleak House, that's considered the greatest. I mean, you have to have the patience of Job to plow through that. It's very grim. Dry humor, very, very dry humor. Oh, maybe it's Jane Austen. Pride and Prejudice. That dramatization with Keira Knightley, that's one of my favorite movies. I love that. They all seem to be very charming, all of the dramatizations of the Jane Austen novels. The more you know about the world, the more you learn from me about the world you live in. Not the world as it's supposed to be, but the world it really is. The better novelist you will become. So that's what I'm going to be writing about. I've already started my Rossetti. I write about the world we live in. I don't. It's a perfect verb here. Franson does this, He writes books for women. They are really sophisticated romance novels. And he's going to be completely forgotten because you can't write for a gender. You can't do that. Those books gender books, the genres, like the romance novels, or the thrillers. I guess that's not so gender. I think of the thrillers as being male-oriented, and maybe I'm wrong about that. But genre books are crap, of course. You can, if that's all you can do to make a living, I guess you're right. I didn't have to go to high school. I could romance novels, by the boatload to make money, but I wouldn't do that. That's too, it's a repulsive idea to me. Using my talent as a writer to write books that, like Francis does. Catering to women, but there's another, better word. As a writer, I want you to become, you've got to become interested in language. You've got to have a limited vocabulary. Understand that there's no synonyms. Every word has its own connotations, suggestions, and nuances, and so on. It's really only appropriate in certain contexts, I've found. Or I would say most effective, especially verbs. So, you need to have hundreds of verbs, okay? Hundreds of adjectives. What about Hemingway? I can't stand his short stories. Howard Bloom, did not like his novels until he was a short story writer. Harold Bloom is from another planet. Howard Bloom. I just did not agree with him on anything. Hemingway. Well, you've got to read Sun Also Rises, Farewell to Arms. I cannot stand For Whom the Bell Tolls because I hate communists. It's about communists. I started reading. I can't read it. I cannot read it. I think that I could be reincarnated. In fact, I believe I was reincarnated. It explains my really passionate hatred for communists. Notice that I died. I'm sorry, I didn't die. I was born in the last 3 weeks from the end of the great battle. It was raging when I was born. It was 3 weeks before the end of that battle. And so, the people believe in reincarnation. They believe that when someone dies a violent death, such as in a battle, he is immediately reborn. That's a belief in the reincarnation. And that would explain my hatred for communism and a lot of other things. Let's stay on track here. Read The Stranger. That's one of my favorite novels. That's the only Camus novel that I can read. But I just love this novel. It's very short. Read The Stranger. I think I share with Camus an ability to find essences, find what's really important, in life, in actions, and in people's characters, and that's got to be one of the greatest novels. Oh hell, I forget Heart of Darkness by Conrad. And of course, you've got to read The Great Gatsby. That's probably our greatest novel. Well, I've given you a whole shelf of books to read. But read mine first, because you can ask me questions about it, and it's more fun. It's more entertaining. In other words, than any novel ever. Believe me, it is. Wait till I get started as a boxer. But see, what I'm doing right now, in the beginning of it, the part I've read you, is I'm evoking this world. See, I'm filling it out completely, and I'm making it more and more, making you feel really at home in it. See, I'm really bringing this world of Tampa to life. I want you to learn everything you can from me, how I create characters. I mean, this Rossetti is, I think, one of the most interesting characters in literature. And I get to do things in the first person. See, that I could not do in the third person. That help to evoke the world. I mean, I said, do not use language that draws attention to itself ever. But there's an exception to the rule in this memoir. It's like a memoir writing, 870-page memoir. He can quote Elizabethan poets because that's part of his personality. That helps me to delineate, his character, to describe him. His being an aesthete, that's an important part of his personality. His humor, his spontaneity, his humor, his personality is as much a subject of the novel as the events. And I don't think you're going to find a character in a novel with such a fascinating personality, such a sense of humor, intelligence. Where he gets all this. Yeah. So that should give you an idea. If you want to write a first-person narrative, memoir, novel, this should be a great inspiration for you, and you should learn from it. That gives you enough to think about. I'm going to read this Justine, and tell you what happens, and whether I think it's worth a reading or not. Right now, I wouldn't. There's too many. There's hundreds of much better books in this, but I chose it to illustrate how different authors write, how they use what they do with their words, how they develop their narrative, their characters, etc. Okay, so I hope everyone enjoyed this. Please subscribe so you can stay up with me. I want to hear your comments on my Moby Dick. How many I fooled tonight, and how many thought I was reading the words of Melville when I read my edition of the Spottarian. Okay. Wait a minute, here it is. I can't find it. Tech, we're finished.
Okay, I think this was a good one.